Henrik Fisker comes to the aid of Elon Musk, believe it or not, in the interview he just gave to Fox Business. A few other interesting things he mentioned that I'm going to talk about that. And also, the new EPA rating came out for a car that now is second in a longest EPA rated range after Tesla. Of course, it's no longer Chevy Volt, so this is a big deal. And a few other stories, all of them are coming up next.
Taking over the world, electrifying the world,
Thank you to those of you who are watching me live right now on Patreon. And of course, if this is your first time here and you're interested in staying up to date on everything that's going on in the world of electric cars, go ahead and click on that subscribe button so you don't miss anything moving forward. All right, let's talk about this interview that Henrik Fisker just gave to Fox Business. By the way, I was lucky enough to interview him twice, actually. This one time at the CES in Vegas, and another time he just came on to my show one-on-one for an exclusive interview. But today he was talking to Fox Business, and guess what? And when he was asked about, what Elon Musk should do, what his opinion on it is, and he basically suggested, he should definitely stay. This whole, Tesla thing is all about him. He gave example, Ford as an example, and he believes there's just some people who just, it's all about them. I think Steve Jobs always comes to mind, of course. So very surprising, that. No, listen. I probably should not say surprising. I like Henrik a lot. He's been nothing but great to me, and overall, I think he's been taking questions head on. I've asked him a couple of tough questions, and he answered them head on. And I think he's always been honest. And this was just yet another example of that. It's good to hear that he is kind of, I know there's beef between them, from the past and stuff like that, but it looks like he came to Elon's aid and said, this guy should stay. Now, another thing that Henrik mentioned that I actually completely agree with, he was asked, hey, how come the car sales for electric cars suck so bad? I think there's like 99,000 sold this year out of, millions and millions, obviously, of all cars in the United States. And he said, listen, the product is not good enough. It's either, or the ones that's good enough is very expensive. So he basically says, listen, whenever we as an industry will come up with a car that's better than the gas car and at a good price point, then yeah, it will definitely be popular. I'm paraphrasing. Don't comment that I'm putting words in his mouth. I'm kind of paraphrasing in how I understood his comment. And again, another honest, good comment that I completely agree with. So definitely very interesting. I'm going to try to put a link in the description of this video to that interview so you guys check it out for yourselves. Oh yeah, and he also mentioned that they're working on a $40,000 car. I don't know if I missed it from the past or if this is the first time he's mentioning it, but good for them. Good for them. I mean, obviously, I'm looking for the solid state battery in his Emotion car that's coming out, but it's exciting to know that they are planning for a $40,000 car for everybody. So, or at least for most people. All right, before I move on to the good EPA news here, I just want to remind you guys that this show and this channel is sponsored by Evernex, the aftermarket accessories for Tesla. There is a discount code in the description of this video. All right, Kona EV from Hyundai got rated, and it is 258 EPA miles. Now, obviously, it's a little more than usually the range is. The realistic range usually about 10 to 20% less, depending how you drive. But this is officially now the highest EPA range of any car that's not Tesla, right? Obviously, Tesla is the king, and they some people reporting 340 miles even on Model 3, but the official range, what is it, 315 or whatever? So 310, yeah, 310. And Model S, I believe, is rated also at 315. So, but yeah, 258 EPA on Hyundai Kona EV. This is a big deal. It's no longer a Chevy Bolt, though they held on to that crown for a little bit. Yeah, this is exciting. This is what I'm talking about. This car and Kia Niro EV that's coming out, I'm expecting a very similar range. And of course, the pricing, everybody expects the pricing of this car to be in the low 30s. Not for the size of the battery, for the lower size of the battery, that's going to give you, I think, the 186 EPA miles, which is still really good, I believe, especially for that price point. Plus, don't forget, 30 something thousand dollars minus the incentives, in some cases it's $10,000. We're talking about a, you know, compact SUV, all electric with a pretty decent range for, you know, low 20s or maybe even mid 20s. That's a hell of a deal if you ask me. So this is very exciting. I've said it for a year now that this car and Kia Niro EV could just be those cars that compete very heavily with Tesla, and obviously Tesla is about 2 years away from a compact SUV, the Model Y. So this is very exciting news. I will certainly keep my eye on it, and we'll see what happens with the Kia Niro all electric. All right, so there's a story that I don't really like because it's a non-story that I think people made it into the story, but apparently there's a report from Business Insider that during the crunch time when Tesla needed to come up with 5,000 Model 3s in 1 week, the pass-through rate, or whatever they call it, the number of cars that basically made it through testing after the very first pass was only 14%, where the industry standard varies anywhere between 50 and 80, which is, by the way, still very low if you ask me. I mean, a lot of this is done by robots, and this is a conveyor line with the, you know, same people doing same thing with same machines. So, and I guess the industry goal is 80. That kind of blew my mind. I didn't really expect it to be that low. I would have thought most of them were, you know, pretty relatively close to perfect. Anyway, Tesla's was 14%, and you know, then Tesla replied and said, you know, since then we actually decreased the number of labor hours by 30%, and they also said that the things that needed to be fixed, you know, here and there, they were relatively minor. They didn't say that what they were, which always is kind of like, well, can you tell us if you're already telling us about this? They did not. Now, I really don't think how this is really a story. Listen, they are still ramping up, and they were definitely ramping up in the crunch time, the new conveyor line in many cases. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of different imperfections here and there. Hey, as long as they catch them, as long as they figure out how to fix them, I think the average fix time was, I think, 30-something minutes, which, you know, yeah, it slowed things down. Yeah, it made it more difficult. Obviously, they just made improvement already by automating it further, which I'm assuming will have less errors and so forth. But I just don't see how it's a story. I mean, this is kind of, I expected this, you know, challenges that Tesla had to face. So yeah, that's. I don't really see a problem here, but apparently it was a story. Here's another non-story that was made into a story, but I'm just going to talk about it like it's a real story. BMW i3, as you know, the car that hasn't really upped its range in a while, which is already not very good. It's about 100-something miles. Obviously, real life range is even less. To me, it's unacceptable. They do have a range extender on this car, and I mean, it looked like they were going to abandon it in sort of for their next generation, but today they put out this video, I think it was yesterday, and this video is just basically essentially talking about how this i3 car is going to be an electricity, what do they call it, dispenser. Right? First of all, the commercial is way long and boring. You don't even know what the hell is going on if I don't tell you up front until like literally the very end. So I don't know. I don't like the commercial, even though I don't even think that it makes any sense, because this car can barely dispense enough electricity for itself. How in the world is going to dispense electricity on other things like running a booth or whatever, as you can see now in the video? So yeah, unless you're running that, you know, gas extender, range extender or whatever, and generating electricity that way, which I guess is still technically a cool thing and something that you might need, you know, as kind of a mini generator, but still, I don't understand where they're going with this. Don't like the video, don't like what's happening there. I don't know, we'll see, but it's in the news today. Now, another thing that's in the news, as you know, Marquez Brownlee had an interview, sit down one-on-one with Elon. I thought all the questions were soft and boring. A lot of you thought about it as well. Now he released a kind of a second part where they actually did a tour of a factory. I found it just as blah. I should actually say that if you've never seen a tour of the factory, even though there are quite a few videos I think out there, or you're particularly interested in certain things, like some of the glimpses of the Model 3 production line, this is not a bad video for that. But as far as giving us any real information, once again, that was a little disappointing. And some of you asked me, like, well, Alex, why are you being so hard on him? You know, it's a friendly interview and everything. But, you know, I already explained, this is an opportunity, a blown opportunity. It's a very rare. I mean, how many people really get to sit down and talk to this guy for, gee, this was about 2 hour total taping from what I understand. You know, you would think you would be able to, and, you know, there could be some, you know what, let me wait on this one because I do have a comment of the day exactly about this. What questions I would ask Elon Musk if I did this interview. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you. But before that, let me thank some of my Patreons, some of my new Patreons. And I'm going to go first with Angela Lancuba. And thank you so much for joining. Double of the top tier, by the way. Thank you. You can watch me live, except for today we're having some sort of a issue with the live feed from what I understand. But I'm still going to do my extra miles and hope it replays. Sorry about that, guys. And then John Emerson also became Patreon. And the longest name I ever had to read so far, Robert Xavier Betancourt Jr. also became a Patreon. Thank you so much, Robert. I really appreciate it. This way keeps me going, keeps me independent. As you know, this is my full-time gig now since I lost my day job as soon as I moved to Sacramento. So yeah, no, but that way I can also do some cool things like I'm going to Monterey Car Week and I'm going to spend there 2 or 3 days, which wasn't really possible before for me to spend that much time at an event like that with a full-time job. So I'm going there now. There will be Rimac, Byton, Mercedes-Benz, Infiniti, Pininfarina. Who am I missing? I think I'm missing a couple. Volvo's Polestar 1's going to premiere. So it's going to be a lot of reporting. I'm going to try to stream live as well for you guys. So I hope you like that. Let me know what you want to see, by the way. Is there something in particular you want me to ask? I'll be interviewing some of the executives, checking out the cars. Maybe a test drive with Byton. I'm kind of looking forward to that if that's going to happen. So, all right. So let me switch to the comment of the day, and this one has to do with the interview that Marquez did with Elon, and Ryan Stubbs and a few other people basically ask, what questions would you like to ask Elon? All right, so first of all, a lot, and it depends. If it was just a friendly interview like this, I still would have asked way different questions. I would have separated into 3 sections. Probably something a little bit more personal, you know, because, you know, I find out, you know, how he spends time with kids. What do they do when they get together? Do they visit him at the factory? Hey, what do their dates with Grimes look like when they're both so busy and so forth? Do they stay in a factory for a day? Do they go out? Do they, you know, like they just how does millionaire like him operate in his off time, if there's such a thing, right? Then there's a tons of questions to ask about the actual, you know, cars and Model 3. You know, everyone's wondering, hey, where's the $35,000 Model 3? And just ask about the challenges about getting the margin down. See what, you know, maybe he understands what kind of demand there is for it. Because remember, they produced a 40 kilowatt hour battery Model S and the demand was low. Like, you know, that was an interesting comparison. Maybe he could have asked them. And of course, you can ask him about the challenges that he faces now. I know it's a friendly interview, so yeah, you don't have to corner him, but there are ways you can ask those questions nicely in a friendly manner. For example, ask him, you know, why did he choose Twitter as a way to communicate? You know, is he happy the way it's been going now? And for example, how does he pick people who he replies to comments to, right? Because, you know, obviously he replies a few regulars like Ryan, Fred, and so forth. He replied to me once. For, you know, so it would be interesting how he picks those out and how much time he spends, you know. So these are questions about the kind of current topic, but at the same time, they could be friendly. Now, if I was just interviewing him as a reporter, as a journalist, absolutely, I would be asking him completely different questions. And I'm sure, I think you guys know what they would be. So I don't want to really repeat myself. But as far as having a friendly interview with somebody as an amazing, you know, figure as him, I think this was a blown opportunity, a humongous opportunity. And yet again, I feel like we also didn't find out anything. We only found out that they're trying to make a $25,000 car, at least they could in 3 years. That they, you know, and that's like the biggest news. I really thought that you could have gotten so much more out of him. I'm not saying like dirt. I'm saying like amazing information about how things going with Tesla and him. So those are the questions I would have asked if I was doing a friendly interview. And I would also probably dress up a little bit better. Yes. All right. So that's pretty much it for this. Tomorrow I'm still going to do the show. Oh, well, so I'm going to do the extra mile for my Patreons right now, even though I think they might be having trouble with the live feed, but it's going to be replayed on Patreon anyway, so I'm going to do that. And after that, I'll still do the show tomorrow. I will try to do the show every day for the rest of the week, even though I will be going from Sacramento to Monterey, and it's a 3-hour drive. But I'll try. If not, I'll either stream live from Monterey. Let me know what you want me to cover there, or I will just do like a pre-recorded segment maybe or something like that. So, all right, guys. Well, listen, another fun day here. Of course, I will be back here tomorrow with more cool news about electric cars. Hit the subscribe button. Go ahead and also become a Patreon if you want to watch me live and contribute to the show. Other than that, see you tomorrow. And remember to stay charged.